Joining me in studio is Suleiman Shahbal, a governor aspirant in Mombasa. Welcome. Great to finally meet you.
Thank you. Same here.
Tell us about yourself.
Suleiman Shahbal was born in Mombasa. I grew up in Mombasa. I went to primary school in a school called Kikowani Primary School. Then relocated to Nairobi, studied in Nairobi school for 6 years. Went to the United States, where I did my first degree and postgraduate degree in the United States. Came back to Kenya, looked for a job, couldn't find a job. Went to the Middle East, and I worked in Dubai, I worked in Saudi Arabia, I worked in a number of countries in Europe. Came back in 1996. I made some money abroad, so I came back and invested in Kenya. And by 2001, I was broke again, so I had to go and look for a job again. Came back in 2005 and started business again. And by the grace of God and hard work, became reasonably successful in business. And in 2010, decided to go for the governorship of Mombasa. 2010. 2010.
Great.
Yes.
You mentioned something before even we get to the governorship, that you tried, you failed, you tried, you failed, and now you're successful in your forte. You could tell us more about that, because I think many people, especially the young people, are always stumbling and, you know, getting disappointed.
I strongly believe that you cannot become a successful businessman without having had a number of failures. So I look back at my failures as learning experiences. I started my first main business in 1996 when I went into the oil business. And I was the first independent Kenyan company to go into that business and got hammered by the oil majors. By 2001, I was completely bankrupt, wiped out. So I had to go back again and work. But I came back in 2005 and started the same business again with friends, and we had learned from previous mistakes, and we did reasonably well. Today, our company is one of the top performing oil companies in Kenya. In 2007, we started a bank called Gulf African Bank and brought in a number of international investors. And then went on to do a few other things as well, and we're quite pleased with the performance. But like I said, I strongly believe that to succeed in anything, you have to fail a number of times. There's no shortcut to success.
I like that. Now, you've said you're successful, and of course it can be seen even from the outside. Why decide to join politics? 2010, you make a big decision. I want to go for governorship. Why?
Because I come from Mombasa, this is my hometown. I grew up there. I feel very passionate about my hometown. And this is a city that has so much potential and so much opportunities. Yet, it is a completely failed state. Mombasa as a city today is to all extents and purposes a bankrupt state. And it should not be this way. And I refuse to accept that this is our destiny as a city, that we should be what we are today. A dirty city, a city that is practically bankrupt, a city where our educational standards are amongst the worst in the country, our infrastructure has collapsed, our water system has gone back, 50 years, our youths are completely unemployed. We have almost 60–70% unemployment in Mombasa. This is unacceptable. And to make matters worse, we look at the political establishment in Mombasa today, and we look at the political leadership in Mombasa, and I see no clear vision of where they want to take us. And as a person who grew up there and who feels passionately, this is not something we can accept. We have a responsibility to try and make amends.
All right. Well, at this point, I'd like to invite your comments or questions to the number 8040. Also, you can tweet us at KTN Kenya or at Betty Kialo. I'll be glad to share your comments or your questions with Suleiman. We're talking about coast politics. He wants to run for governorship come next year. And of course, we're looking at his CV right now. You can send in questions from Mombasa, especially. What will he do for you? I'll be glad to share those questions with him. Now, Suleiman, you mentioned something interesting. Mombasa is bankrupt. Why so? Because Mombasa is the hub of tourism. We have hotels, we have the sandy, beautiful beaches. Why is it bankrupt?
One word: mismanagement. It's as simple as that, because it is inexplicable. It's difficult to explain why a city that has so much potential. We have the port, we have tourism, we have so much services. The whole of East Africa is dependent on Mombasa, and we can't get our act straight. It's because of management. There's no other reason.
Okay.
So you change the management and things will definitely start to improve.
Okay.
Yeah.
And changing the management, what do you think will be done differently, or you will do differently compared to the past the leadership that has been there?
The strategy that we have for Mombasa is a four-pronged approach. Number one, I strongly believe that the responsibility of running our city is not just to the politicians. Everybody has a role to play. Every single citizen of Mombasa must be involved in the running of our city. So I call for personal responsibility and personal commitment and involvement. The second part.
Maybe you could expand more on that, because now people are listening. They want to know.
I'll explain. You see, today Mombasa is a very dirty city. Now, you cannot complain that Mombasa is dirty when you are the first person who throws garbage outside of your house. So it is your responsibility to keep your neighborhood clean. It is my responsibility as governor to make sure that I have trucks which collect that garbage. That's a classic example. Second example, don't complain about mismanagement in the government and then you don't come out and vote, and you don't make an effort to change the system. So I'm saying that it is time for the people of Mombasa to stand up and take personal responsibility for their neighborhoods, to get involved in the local management of their affairs, and to get involved in the political process. So number one is a call to personal responsibility and involvement. Number two, Mombasa has become too big. We can no longer treat Mombasa as one cosmopolitan city. So my idea is to split it into 6 mini-cities. Mvita, Likoni, Changamwe, all the constituencies will become mini-cities, and divide the management of the city into 6 different parts and give responsibilities to those mini-cities.
So this is actually devolving the county?
Devolving the county into 6 mini-cities. And each city will have its own administrative headquarters, its own general hospital, its own fire station, its own high school of a national standard. I'm not talking of some, just build a high school. I'm talking of a high school of a national standard, so that the children in that city can aspire for this school. I'm talking of a centralized market in all these cities. And I'm talking about giving responsibility to that particular city and the people of that area. The third thing is devolution down at the ward level. And I would like to have the concept of a community center in each and every single ward, where in each ward we build a community center, community hall, which will house between 500 to 700 people for social functions. At night, I want to convert this into a study center for our students in Standard 8 and Form 4, so that they can have a place to study with support from teachers and university students. I want a clinic with an ambulance. I want social services for our women when they get pregnant, when they have children, as a center for HIV education, as a center for anti-drug education. I want a youth center where we can give them computers and a library and an employment bureau. And then I want a police post, which will be managed by regular police and community police and its own Land Rover. And then we give them a budget and let the people of the ward manage their own affairs. Now, if we do this, what have we done? We've addressed youth issues, we've addressed security issues, we've addressed education, we've addressed women issues. and then we continue training and empowering these people and let them move on.
Okay.
This is what I mean by saying we want people involved. Then the fourth part is investment into Mombasa. I am convinced that we can bring in billions of dollars investment into Mombasa and change Mombasa completely. There is so much potential for investment in Mombasa. But investors go into a city which is attractive. Investors go into an environment which is conducive, which is welcoming. Look at Mombasa today. It's a dump site. Who wants to invest in a dump site? This is our vision for Mombasa.
Okay. You mentioned the mini cities, which
Yes.
I think is very interesting because we're talking about devolving the counties further.
Yes.
If you look at some of the, probably the mini cities that you'll have, you'll find probably the literacy levels are not that high. Maybe so many people are not educated. How will you ensure that these people who will be kind of like leading will, excuse me, will actually have the capacity to do so?
We have to build capacity. We cannot wait another 20 years until we have capacity. You see, today in Mombasa, we have a lot of highly educated, highly skilled people who don't even live in Mombasa because there's no opportunity in Mombasa.
Yes.
But if Mombasa starts to improve as a city,
Okay.
we have so many people within Mombasa itself willing and able to take up responsible positions. We have people who come from Mombasa who live in Nairobi. Why are they in Nairobi? Because there's no opportunity in Mombasa. So I believe that as our city starts to shine again, the best and brightest will come back again and help revitalize the economy for the benefit of everybody in Mombasa.
Okay. Let's just sample some, as we move on, let's sample some of the messages. There's so many already. What Suleiman is saying is very true. Mombasa is a failed town, even close to a city, yet the potential it has is very enormous. It lacks good leadership and vision. That's Mdachi. Let's take a look at Mr. Governor-to-be. Are you the owner of African Gulf Bank? What do you promise us when you vote in? And what qualifies you as a manager? Something like that.
Yeah, I think that's a very good question. What qualifies you as a manager? It is very unfortunate that this whole governor position has become politicized. It should never have been a political position. It should have been a position where people apply, they look at your CV, they look at your track record, and then based on that decide whether you qualify for this job or not, because this is basically a management position. Yes. Of course it has political overtones. So if you look at my track record, I mean my professional experience, I started my banking career as a very junior officer in the bank. I left Citibank, which was, you know, the largest bank in the world, as the head of private banking for the Middle East. So clearly I did something right in my employed career. My business career is an interesting experience. I mean, I have had my share of failures, but I've also had my share of successes. I am a shareholder in the fastest growing energy company in Kenya. I set up Gulf African Bank, which brought in investors from all over the world at a time when Kenya was burning. I've set up a power project. It's a $100 million project, more than 10 billion shillings. We've gone into property development. So our track record in management and performance is there for anybody to check. Honest, straightforward, legitimate businesses. So, you know, I encourage that type of question. What makes you think that you have the managerial skills to run Mombasa? And more interesting is, in my business experience, one of the things that we have done very well is take failed businesses and convert them into successful businesses. Mombasa is a failed business estate. And I am convinced that our managerial skills and experience, including our failures, can help us revitalize and change Mombasa.
Okay, great. That has answered that. Hello, sir. How will you, as governor, use its cosmopolitancy as a strength and not a recipe for tribalism as it is now? That's Eric Omwami from Mombasa.
Good question. Mombasa is a cosmopolitan city. Suleiman Shahbal is a cosmopolitan man. I mean, I have lived in Lamu, in Mombasa, in Nairobi, in Europe. in the Middle East. To me, tribe doesn't matter. Tribe doesn't matter, religion doesn't matter, color doesn't matter. I look at you as Betty, an individual. I frankly don't care what tribe you are. And it's the same thing that we have in Mombasa, you know. So when I'm in the governor's position, it is the best man for the job or the best woman for the job. And when I look at distributing Mombasa's benefits, it's going to the cities, it's going to the wards. It's not going to any particular tribe. So when we say we're going to allocate X amount of money to the wards, it's going to be across the ward, across Mombasa County. So that to me is not really an impediment. I think it's a strength for Mombasa that we come from so many different backgrounds and different tribes and different religions and different colors. It's what makes Mombasa beautiful.
All right. One here, it's going to challenge you a bit. Salma from Mombasa, you said you are you went to school in Kikoani, and you have said you are a successful businessman. I have seen the bad condition of Kikoani Primary School where you schooled. What have you done, or what do you expect to do?
You see, there is a feeling in Kenya that comes back from the Moi era, that the minute you go into politics, the first thing you do, build a road to your town and repair the school that you went to. It will do the people of Mombasa no good if Suleiman Shahbal goes and paints Kikoani Primary School. My challenge is not just Kikoani Primary School. My challenge is each and every school in Mombasa. So we should look at the whole picture. What can we do about our educational system? And let's not play public relation games. It's very easy for me to go and put 15 benches in Kikoani Primary School and say, I've done something for my school. I'm not interested in playing games with publicity. I'm interested in making real changes. Education is a major challenge that we have in Mombasa. And I have kept on emphasizing all the time, my number one priority is education. My number two priority is education. My number three priority is education. The failure of our educational system in Mombasa is extremely embarrassing. We are one of the worst performing cities in Kenya. I mean, Mombasa is the second largest city in Kenya, for heaven's sake. You know, we should have decent schools. But you have schools where you go into a classroom and there are 95 students in the classroom. You go to schools, they have no desks. I was in a school in Kisauni last week, and the last time they got anything from their CDF fund was 6 years ago when they were given 6 desks. Where is the focus on education? We need to build more schools. We need to build more high schools. We need to invest more in our teachers. We need to make sure these schools have proper desks and proper books and proper computers. We need to invest in education in total. Let's not keep lying to ourselves and saying that because he wants to run for governor, what has he done for Kikoani? Kikoani is not Mombasa. I want to be governor of Mombasa, not governor of Kikoani.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you've talked about the education standards being poor at the coast region, which has led to unemployment rates being high and increasing by the number. How will you control that? How will you make sure that probably so many youth get a chance or an opportunity to be employed or to get access to education, even as old as probably they are?
See, education, there are a number of things that we have to do. Number one, short-term and immediate solutions.
Yes.
And the short-term and immediate solutions that I'm looking at is to improve the exam performance. So we have started across Mombasa County what we call examination preparation centers, where we get allocation and students who are in Standard 8 and Form 4 come for free tuition. And we pay for the place, we pay for the teachers, we pay for the books, we pay for the exam papers. I'm hoping that we can improve the exam performance of our students. That's the quick term fix. But that's not the final solution. The final solution, like I said, is we have to invest in education. We have, as a county, to put money aside for bursaries for our bright students. So it is part of my vision that every ward of Mombasa will give them a budget of 50 million shillings to manage their ward, their clinics, their youth centers, their social services, their halls, and put aside some money for bursaries. And let the people at the ward set the criteria for who deserves and who doesn't deserve.
Okay.
So invest in education. Number 3, we have to look at building more polytechnics, because not everybody can go to university. So I don't want to see wastage of our young people, that just because he's failed in standard 8, that he's gone. Or he's failed in Form 4 or hasn't performed well in Form 4, we let him out into the job market with no skills, no capital, no ideas. What do you expect? Now, we have to try and do something. We may not succeed immediately, but unless you start, you're never going to make any progress. Where is the vision? We want to implement this thing as soon as possible, and we will invest in it because this is the future of our people.
Okay. Also, another issue facing Mombasa is MRC.
Yes.
We have been in the news so many times just asking that Mombasa, the Coast Province, be separated. What's your position on that?
My position is very clear. You see, MRC's issues are 3 issues. Land issues, where thousands of people are living as squatters. Number 2, unemployment. Number 3, a sense of marginalization, that they're Kenyans but they don't really belong and don't feel like they're being treated as Kenyans. So their issues are legitimate and have to be addressed. But the solutions that they're proposing are solutions that we don't agree with. I mean, this idea of secession doesn't make sense to me. And I have engaged with so many people and said, it is not in our interest to secede. We are part of Kenya.
Yes.
The new constitution has given us solutions to a lot of our problems. Let us solve our problems, because our problems are the same problems across Kenya. So if we want to secede and Northeastern wants to secede, eventually we'll destroy our country. So secession is absolutely out of the question.
Okay. All right. Let's take some questions. Mr. Shahbal, what will you do to remove the suspicion between the black coastal residents and the Arabs, because the indigenous people feel left out? That's Kalume from Mombasa.
You know, that's, in my view, that's cheaper propaganda, okay? Because, I mean, look at myself. I'm an Arab, but I'm not an Arab from Qatar. I'm an Arab from Mombasa. I grew up there. I've lived with people from Mombasa all my life. We have intermarried. We all go to the same mosques. We go to the same schools. We play in the same football teams. We have the same problems, and we need the same solutions. So this is the type of cheap politics that my opponents are trying to play. And I've completely rejected this. I said, today, if you raise an issue that this guy is an Arab, tomorrow you'll raise an issue that this guy is a Kikuyu, this guy is a Luo, this guy is a Giriama. Where does it stop? We are one people with one destiny, one problem, and one solution. So I reject that type of stories completely. I have never felt I'm any different from anyone else. And I know that this is a fact.
Okay.
And the people in Mombasa, most people don't buy that, that type of propaganda.
Okay. All right. Hi, Mr. Suleiman. I'm Ahmed from Isiolo. I think we like leaders like you that are worried about the common mwananchi, but there's something you've not mentioned, which is affecting the youth of Mombasa: drugs. What is your plan against drugs? Very serious issue.
Drugs is an extremely serious issue in Mombasa, and I have been warning this for years. And I've said that the country as a whole has unfortunately not treated this thing with the seriousness it deserves. And it is a cancer that is starting from Mombasa and will infect the whole of Kenya very quickly. Drugs, we have to implement very tough laws against them and make sure that those laws are actually done. I want to call for the death penalty on drug dealers. Just like in Malaysia, just like in Singapore, just like in Thailand. Drug dealers are killers. Killers deserve the death penalty. That's number one. Number two, we need to fight the distribution and the importation of drugs. Number 3, we need to start educating our children much more. Remember when the AIDS epidemic started, it was killing thousands and thousands of people. But when education started coming in and people realized the dangers of this thing, it started coming down. We need to invest more in education on the dangers of drugs, right from nursery school, so that that temptation of even trying stops. So the solution to the drug issue is at various levels. It's at the legal level, it's at the distribution and importation level, it's the education level, and then also on the rehabilitation side. It's very unfortunate that today Mombasa has 25,000 drug addicts, and we have 5 rehabilitation centers. And if you visit these rehabilitation centers, there are symptoms of neglect. No investment in these things. Mombasa Municipal Council chose to spend 1 million shillings on rehabilitation. Out of the 2.6 to 2.8 billion shillings that they have, 1 million shillings. It's a very sad situation, and we have to deal with this issue.
Do you think it's going to be easy to actually get to the drug dealers themselves?
If there is a seriousness at the political level, at the national level, to deal with this thing, we can definitely deal with this issue.
Okay.
I don't believe that this thing is being taken with the seriousness that it deserves.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, Bwana Mheshimiwa, what will you do to solve the squatter problem in Mombasa? That's Samuel Ojunga from Mombasa.
The squatter problem has been a problem for the last 50 years. At the time of independence, the Kenya government set up a settlement trust fund to help squatters buy out their lands. In Central Province, for example, political leaders have spent a lot of time and effort to help their people buy out their farms, the white-owned farms. In the Coast Province, that same amount of effort hasn't gone in. Consequently, we still have squatters living on lands which they should have owned years ago, but nothing has been done. Again, it comes back to political leadership. If the politicians don't get involved seriously in executing the settlement trust funds, the money is there. The government has put the money for us there since 1963. But it remains a problem for us because execution is not being done properly. So when we come into government, and fortunately the laws have also changed, they are now going to be local land boards, we will put special emphasis on this because it's a problem that we have to address once and for all. And I'm sure that we can address this issue.
Okay. And the recent spate of attacks in Kenya and, of course, also in Mombasa by the Al-Shabaab, what is your take on that?
Al-Shabaab are a criminal gang. See, I mean, as a Muslim, I feel offended that such people would actually use religion as an excuse for attacking other people. I find that totally repulsive. And I think the Kenya government is doing the right thing to absolutely take very tough actions again. I'm totally, absolutely against this terrorism that is going on in the country.
Are you against or pro the anti-terror bill?
See, the anti-terror bill, it's very important that we do not forget the lessons of history. When we came up with the first constitution in 1963, we had the Bill of Rights, which protected citizens' rights. 2 years later, they came up with a new act called Preventive Detention Act, which gave the president the powers to jail people without having any explanations. And we gave up our fundamental rights in the name of protecting the state. We are at risk of doing the same thing with the Anti-Terrorism Act. I agree that we need to stop the terrorism, and it's important to have these laws. But you cannot create laws which are based on an emotional kickback. These anti-terror laws were set up by the US, what they call the Patriot Act, and we copied it almost line per line. The result is that we now give the police the right to imprison people without due process. what happens when you do that? Look at today's newspaper. Some chap was jailed for 14 days in prison without access to a lawyer, and got beaten up and got hurt, and now he's suing the state. So let's have the laws that will protect the Mwananchi, but let us not give up our fundamental rights. And the fundamental rights of our people are enshrined in the Bill of Rights. So let's do this thing, but let's do it properly.
Are there any specific clauses that you think should to be changed?
Absolutely. Number one, the definition of terrorism. We have to be very clear what we call terrorism. Number two, the police should not have the right to just arrest anybody and lock them up, and you don't even know where they've been arrested, and they stay in police cells, different police cells, indefinitely. Number three, confiscation of a person's property has to be through proper due process. If this person is found guilty, confiscate everything they have, but let's go through a proper process. So let us not end up focusing so much on our security that we end up sacrificing the human rights that we fought so hard to get. I wish they would apply the same thing to drug dealers, because we have very tough anti-terror terror laws that we want to implement without really thinking through them properly. But nobody's giving any attention to the same problem of drugs, which is killing even more people.
And the recent tribal advisories that have been given by the United States, where we have so many people who come in as tourists, what's your take on that?
More people get killed in New York on a daily basis than people who have died in the terrorism acts in Kenya. Should we have a travel advisory on New York now? So I think the Americans have to be a bit more sensitive to the implications of these travel advisories. They may take it lightly and make such things, but they affect our economy. This is economic sabotage to a large degree. So we as Kenyans have to be very much aware that these things damage us. And it should be raised at a high level with the US government. I don't think they really care, but we should raise it nevertheless.
Okay. Yeah. Now, going politics, you were in ODM and now UDF. Why the change?
ODM is a party that propagates very noble and interesting ideas, but they don't walk the talk. There is absolutely no internal democracy within ODM. I left because there was no internal democracy. Mudavadi left because there was no internal democracy. And watch, as we approach the elections, a lot more people will walk because there is no internal democracy. You can't preach democracy and practice your own brand of internal politics. You have to walk the walk, walk the talk.
Do you support Musalia Mudavadi completely?
Absolutely. You see, I have known Mudavadi since high school. We went to school together. I know the man very well. Very humble man, very down to earth, religious, has absolutely no tribal affiliations, gets on well with everybody, and has a vision for this country. I've known him for the last 35 years. So if you ask me, what is your take on Mudavadi? What is my take on anybody who applies for office? Personal character, which I like. CV, this man has been Minister of Transport, Minister of Agriculture, Minister of Finance, Vice President, Deputy Prime Minister. So his CV in government is impressive. And he's a Kenyan. He has the right to fight for the presidency like anybody else. And I'm 100% supporting him. Do
you think he's a project? There has been speculation that he's a project. What's your take on that?
You know, when anybody starts something, people will always try and find a negative to put on him. What is a project? Why are people saying that this is a project? The claims that the state is funding or supporting Mudavadi, so what? You know, if you are running for president, anybody who supports you, you'll welcome that support. If ODM tomorrow comes and says we'll support Mudavadi, we'll take that support as well. I think this is just cheap propaganda. Walk with Mudavadi. I have been with Mudavadi in Nakuru. I've been with him in Mombasa. I've been with him in Kakamega. I've been with him in Lamu. And the people who are coming to welcome him are thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of people. Mudavadi is the new face of Kenya. Okay? Mudavadi has the people's mandate. Mudavadi is the people's project. They may not like that, but the figures will show them this very quickly. And I think this is the next president of Kenya.
Okay.
And what I like most about Mudavadi is the man is a unifier. Look at UDF today. Very quickly, UDF came from a small, unknown party. Today you have the entire face of Kenya. You have Somalis, you have people from Western, people from Central, people from Nyanza. It's become a national party in every respect. The man is a unifier. Okay. That is why I'm supporting him.
All right. We're just about to wind up. Maybe your last message as we wind up.
I think what is critically important for us as people of Mombasa and for the whole of Kenya is that this is a fantastic opportunity to repair what has gone wrong. It's an opportunity that comes once in a lifetime. We must not waste it by focusing on leaders who are tribal, leaders who are out to divide people, leaders who don't have the capacity to deliver. I think it's very important for Kenyans to come to terms now that, for heaven's sake, let us start afresh. Let us clean shop. Every election, 60 to 70% of parliamentarians have been sent home. The same is going to happen. But I am calling on Kenyans across Kenya, please elect credible, reputable leaders who can deliver. Let us not go back to electing people on party affiliations. Let us elect people on merit. Let us change our country. This is the time. As Barack Obama says, the fierce urgency of now. Now is the time to change our country.
Right. Thank you so much.
I hope you'll vote, Betty.
Definitely.
Okay.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you very much.
It was great having you.
Thank you.
All right. We now take a short commercial break. Pastor Julian Kula coming up next to talk about parenting in the 21st century. Don't go.
Is it sinking? Usually you don't.
Condition.